Today is Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia. On today's show, we'll hear from former Ambassador Andrew Young. He talks about the importance of fighting for a $15 living wage and also the issue of the filibuster when it comes to passing the John Lewis Voting Act as well as the George Floyd Justice Act. So we'll share that with you. Also, on today's show, we'll talk to former Major League Baseball star Herb Washington, who are suing McDonald's, saying they wrongly treated him as a franchisee and actually chose to help out white franchisees over their black franchisees. Linda Thomas Greenfield, she was confirmed today by the United States Senate. We'll tell you who voted for her and who didn't. Also, Merrick Garland in his second day of testimony yesterday. Lots of time him talking about discrimination, white supremacists, race equity. We'll show you some of that on today's show as well. Here in Georgia, the Republicans are doing all they can to pass voter suppression bills. We'll break down what is happening and the fight against them. And also, former Senator David Perdue said he's now not going to run against Pastor Raphael Warnock for the U.S. Senate next year. Also, Illinois has become the first state to abolish cash bail. And today is the first anniversary of the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Folks, and investigators have released an update in the Elijah McClain case, the young brother who was shot and killed by cops in Colorado in 2019. Also, we'll talk with the co-founders of MahoganyBooks, a Black Owned Bookstore in Washington, D.C. It provides books written for, by, and about folks from the African Diaspora. Folks, it's a quite busy show. It's jam-packed. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Folks, we're here in Atlanta, Georgia on today, where we had an opportunity to sit down early with Ambassador Andrew Young. Later in the show, we're going to share with you some of what he told us. Today, people are honoring the life of Ahmaud Arbery, who was shot and killed this day 1 year ago as he was jogging in a town here in Georgia. Remember, Travis McMichael and his father and former police officer Greg McMichael, they followed Arbery in a truck before gunning him down with a shotgun. Their neighbor, Brian, followed as well and recorded the entire ordeal. Arbery's death, of course, was overlooked for months, but they really rose to prominence when you focus on Brennan. In his case as well, it wasn't until that video came out and the pressure that was put on people when they were finally targeted. And of course, remember, this took place in the Satilla Shores subdivision where he fell bleeding in the street after 3 shotgun blasts. Folks, his family doing all they can to make sure people remember his life. There was a memorial procession that was planned this evening as well. And so that's what was going on there. Now, yesterday, during the Senate confirmation hearing, Merrick Garland, Georgia Senator John Ossoff specifically asked Garland about this particular case. Here is their exchange.
Judge, I want to ask you about equal justice. Black Americans continue to endure profiling, harassment, brutality, discrimination in policing and prosecution, in sentencing, and in incarceration. How can you use the immense power of the Office of the Attorney General to make real America's promise of equal justice for all? And can you please be specific about the tools that you'll have at your disposal?
So this is a substantial part of why I wanted the Attorney General. I'm deeply aware of the moment that this is in. When Senator Durbin was reading the statement of Robert Kennedy, it hit me. We are in a similar moment to the moment he was in. So there are a lot of things that the department do. One of those things has to do with the mass incarceration, the over-incarceration of citizens, and of its disproportionate effect on Blackens and communities of color and other minorities. There are different ways in which we can that is disproportionate in this both of population, but also given the data we have, the fact crimes are not committed by these crimes are not committed in a greater number than in others, and that similar crimes not charged in the same way. So we have to find ways to deal with this. One important way, I think, is to focus on the crimes that really matter, that attract to bring our charging and arresting on violent crime, others that deeply affect our society, and have such an overemphasis on possession, for example, which has disproportionately affected a community of color and then damaged them far after the original arrest of the inability to get jobs. We have to look at our charging policies again and go back to the policy that I had Janet Reno during her period, and that Eric Holder did while he was the Attorney General, of not feeling that we must charge every offense to the maximum, that we don't have to seek this possible offense with this possible sentence, that we should give discretion to our process to make the offense and the charge fit the crime and be proportional to the damage it does to society. That we should look at we should also look closely and more sympathetic towards retrospective reductions in sentences. The first step has given us some opportunity, or not enough, to reduce a sentence to a fair amount. And legislatively, look at equalizing, for example, what's known as the crack powder ratio, which has had an immensely disproportionate impact on communities of color, which evidence shows is not related to the dangerousness of the two drugs. They should do as President Biden has suggested, the elimination of mandatory minimum, so that we once again give authority to district trial judges to make determinations based on all sentencing factors normally apply, and that don't away from them the ability to do this in individual cases. All of that will make a big difference in what you're talking about.
Thank you, Judge Garland. And let's discuss accountability for local agencies. The Civil Rights Division has the authority to launch pattern or practice investigations targeting systemic violations of constitutional rights or violations of federal statutes governing law enforcement. Tomorrow will be the first anniversary of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery in Glenn County, Georgia, who was shot to death in broad daylight in the street on camera. But local authorities chose to look the other way, and were it not for the activism of Georgia NAACP, likely would not have been any prosecutions. How can Congress equip DA's Civil Rights Division to launch more and more effective pattern practice investigations without asking you to comment on the details of the Arbery case? And how else can the Department of Justice use its authority to ensure that where local agencies violate constitutional rights or fail to uphold the guarantee of equal protection, there's accountability?
Well, I appreciate it. You're not asking me to talk a pending case. What I will say is that, like many Americans, I was shocked by what I saw, videos of a Black American being killed over this last summer. That's, I think, created a moment in the national life that brought attention from people who had not seen what Black Americans and others of communities of color had for decades. But it did bring everything to the fore and create a moment. We have an opportunity to make dramatic changes and really forth equal justice law, which is our commitment of the Justice Department. So the Civil Rights is the place where we focus these operations. You're exactly right that pattern and practice and or practice investments are the core of ability to bring actions here, that these lead to all different kinds of remedies, sometimes consent decrees as a potential remedy. We also can criminally prosecute violations, constitutional rights. We can also provide funding for police departments to reform themselves. I do believe that officers who follow the Constitution want accountability. They want officers who do not to become accountable, because if that doesn't happen, their law enforcement agency is tainted, lose the credibility in the community, and without the community's trust, they can't have safety. So we have this number of tools. Whether we need additional to a particular area, I don't know. Obviously, the resource necessary, I'm probably going to be like a broken record in every one of these areas to do our job.
And Judge Garland, with my time so short, will you commit to working with my office and with this committee to determine what additional authorities the department may need and what resources you may require in order to be able to bring more and more effective pattern or practice investigation where appropriate?
Absolutely, Senator. I'm sorry to have gone on.
No problem.
All right, folks, let's talk about this with our panel. Terry, board member of the Frederick Douglass Foundation, Michigan. Mustafa Montague Ali, PhD, former advisor for environmental justice at the EA, and Amisha Cross, political analyst and Democratic strategist. Mustafa, start with you. Again, a year ago, Ahmaud Arbery killed. It really wasn't until April the story really went national. Then, of course, it was Breonna Taylor right before that. His story goes national. You know, the intensity, and began to find out that the local DA chose not to prosecute. A second DA chose not to prosecute, and how one of the DA essentially writes a document that was more like a defense attorney for the men who were involved. And it wasn't Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Took 24 hours later, the first two men were charged with the death of Ahmaud Arbery.
Well, you know, that's why this confirmation is so incredibly important. You know, we often talk about both in the justice system, our courts, our district attorneys. Also, you know, the attorney general has a huge amount of influence and power in making sure that not only on the federal level, things are moving forward through a just ends, but also in working with states to hold them accountable. Make sure, again, as he said, that forces are there for police to other law enforcement entities to do the right thing, you know, and then also, you know, that you're building confidence and trust, which has been with communities of color. It wasn't for some actually having the video, that video to finally get out, and the subsequent other information that came. Then this case, have said, and others have said, would have drifted away, and the other thousands of instances of people being murdered. And let's just call it is, you know, he was hunted down, made a conscious choice to do the actions that they did. And then when you have folks who are part of the process, who are defending the individuals who have murdered one, you know, that these volumes about not only who are, but that system that's in place. And so many folks have been taught a system change, a overhaul. Because, you know, we've got to extract systemic racism out of the system and the law enforcement system. And that's why that new attorney general will be able to assist in that.
Harris, you probably going to hear much better opportunity when it comes to with the civil rights options, if you will. Because when Attorney General Holder was there, one of his complaints was that they were not able to properly go after people because of the limitations of the law when someone's civil rights were being violated. I think this is be different, and so the feds will wait till the outcome of the criminal trial in Georgia before they decide to move forward with any civil charges.
Can you hear me okay?
Terrace? Yes, go ahead.
Oh, good. I'm getting a delay. So, but yeah, but no, thanks for actually having me, man. In this particular situation with his confirmation, man, I think what's going to be most important is that he can remain objective and not really politicize his current position. Obviously, people are kind of sick of politics and actually politicizing everything. And so I don't see him having really a big issue with actually being confirmed if he can do that, and also making for sure that his views on law enforcement along with anti-discrimination laws are pretty solid. And so, but you're right. I mean, unfortunately, and rest in peace, and my condolences go out to Ahmaud's family, man, because this is obviously something that should have never happened. The United States of America is the envy of the world, and people really come here because of the rule of law. And I hope and pray that that this individual, if he's confirmed, that he would do just that to make for sure that we are continuing to be the ones that uphold the law and bring people to justice as well. So, but thanks, I appreciate it. Me okay?
Amisha, yeah, we just fine. We just fine.
Okay.
So, if y'all could work on that issue. Amisha, it's one of those cases where it's difficult for us to have to sit here and talk about it because for a lot of people to see the video of Ahmaud Arbery being gunned down, his life ending, and these white men chasing him down. This indeed, that's what it was. And people can sit here and try to dance around all they want to, but we understand exactly what's in. And this is what black folks have had to deal with. And the point that John Ossoff was making in the questioning is, when will there truly be justice? I mean, that really is the issue that so many people have. When are we going to see justice take place in cases, and then take place when it's supposed to, not when having to stand up, yell, kick, and scream just to get to do the right thing. And that's not what happened in this, where you went through 3 DAs, and then finally, after all of that, finally, the investigation takes place and they are arrested. That's all black folks are saying. Can we just stop? Do we stop having a kick and scream for this stuff to happen?
I think you're absolutely, spot on here, Roland. One of the issues that has consistently, been pushed in this case has been that we did have video footage. We saw in this case what black people have seen for decades, for generations at this point, where white men with guns took it upon themselves to roll up on an African American in a pickup truck and basically kill them and have no reprieve whatsoever, and it be totally outside of their authority to even attempt to arrest, to do anything to this man at all. Mind you, these were not officers, and even if they were, would have been a case that was outside of the realm of how they should have handled business. I think that what we see here, and I'm so glad and honored that we have now two senators who are Democrats from the state of Georgia, one of which being John Ossoff, who was able to present this and talk about it during the Merrick Garland confirmation hearing today. But I think that the point is that there are so many African Americans who are wondering how many more cases will we take. First, it was didn't believe us. They wanted to ignore stories. They didn't want to see it. Now there's video upon video of multiple cases where black people have just been gunned down in the most brutal ways, and yet we still don't see the level of criminal justice or justice brought to those families that we should be seeing, even when there is literal footage in place. I think that with this case specifically, we saw stall after stall, changing of DAs. We saw, the jury process. We saw delays. It pains me to understand and watch Ahmaud Arbery's mother speak, to watch Ahmaud Arbery's mother go this entire process, to watch people from Atlanta have to drive down, and Atlanta is nowhere near where Ahmaud Arbery was actually shot and killed, to see people from around the country, black people and civil rights advocates, stand together and say that we need to do something. And yet still, we're how many months out of this actual murder, and we have yet to see any level of justice. I think that there is something that comes from that. It tells black people we don't matter. It tells black people that a white person can shoot us down like dogs in the street and keep going, and they are protected. It is a frustrating process, and we see it time and again. And I think that Garland, this is a position where he gets to try to level set, try to reset the stage when it comes to race relations in this country, and elevate how it has been a dystopian reality for African Americans when it comes to the system not working for us. I think that he has the opportunity to make sure there is equity in this system, to make sure that these voices are finally heard, to make sure that Lady Liberty and justice does not evade us just because we happen to be black. I think that is his call. That is one of the reasons why, he was chosen for this role, but also because we're at a point in this nation's history where you can no longer ignore these. You can no longer ignore the videos. You can no longer ignore that time after time we're seeing our bodies bare and bloodied in the streets. You can't turn the page and just keep moving. And I think that this position is going to allow him, should he be confirmed, and I think that will, to have the opportunity to really change and level set when it comes to how these cases are handled.
The issue that we're now dealing, not just this particular case, but so many other issues, is when you're also dealing with white Republicans who don't have the same view of justice for African Americans. So if we go on, not the Ahmaud Arbery case, look at what's happening in the state, how shameful and egregious the action Republicans are. In the state legislature, as we speak, they're doing all they can, not just cases like the Ahmaud Arbery case. They're trying to do is steal future elections. Massive voter suppression laws are being passed, are being considered in Georgia as we speak, and various groups are doing all they can to fight efforts. Joining us now is someone who is being doing that. She, of course, serves in the Georgia legislature. Senator Tanya Anderson, with the Georgia Black Caucus. Certainly, Senator Anderson, to have this.
Thank you for having me.
This is the first time I've been back in Atlanta since we spent 5 here in December in January, helping Olson Warnock win. And I warned everybody. I said, look, it's coming. It's coming. I can guarantee you they are going to do all they can to try to steal the election. They're going to change as many laws as they can. They are going to just, run a roughshod over people, and that's what we're seeing. And when you talk about these laws, what you're seeing is Republicans who can't win on ideas, don't want to convince folks to vote for them. They want to steal elections. Give our viewers and listeners an understanding of the kind of evil things that they're doing there in the State House.
So again, let me say thank you for having me, Roland Martin. I just absolutely love you, and I love your show, and I love the work that you do. So I serve as the chair of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, which is the largest Black caucus in these United States, which means that we have almost 70 Black state representatives or state senators in the state of Georgia, which means we represent a very large group of Black people. And what happened, you saw what happened. We danced and loved your video, Show Up, John P. Key, and everybody danced and celebrated. What happened is that they lost. What's happening now is that they are upset. They are angry. They are mad. As we say, they are mad. And they are introducing laws to try to keep themselves in power, as this too is a form of a privilege that they have a right to govern. And we received emails upon email when Trump lost, and just everyday folks on the street, folks in other states emailing us 200 and 300 emails per day saying, stop the steal. The election was fraudulent, recount. And so they're upset. And one lady had the nerve to say that we're not governed, we govern. And, I thought how caring of her to say that you're not supposed to be governed, that you are to govern other people. So it's another form of privilege. It's another form of wanting to remain in power and lose and not wanting to lose their grip. But at the end of the day, we knew in Georgia that we were going to show up again for the runoff, and we had a mandate. It's been a plan, and as a matter of fact, we today in the Senate had 4 bills, and just a few of the bills will remove drop boxes. It will allow for more than one form of ID. It will require that you have to be prove that you are over 75 or disabled in order to vote absentee. Just a few of the bills that are to cripple, to stifle, to roll back that which John Lewis fought for, Congressman Lewis fought for, and Dr. King and Dr. C.T. Vivian and Joseph Black, all of our civil rights heroes fought for. And we're in 2021 trying to maintain those liberties, trying to maintain those freedoms. And it's absolutely despicable how they are pouting and believing the lies of Trump, which has rolled into creating legislation that is a lie behind the lies that they were fed. My issue is that they are creating a solution to a problem that does not exist.
And it's not just Georgia. The reality is they are doing this in Iowa, in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas, going on and on and on. They don't like the fact that people actually used mail-in voting. They are trying to throw out, you didn't have signature match when you actually did. And it's ludicrous to listen to what they're saying. How can you stop it? The reality is they control the legislature. They control the governor's mansion. A little bit later, I'm going to hear from Ambassador Andrew Young, where we talked about where people are calling for senators to actually the filibuster and to pass a very strong John Lewis Vote Act that will be able to stifle these states from abhorrent laws that they are considering.
Absolutely. And not only will it take introducing a strong John Lewis Civil Rights Act, but it's also going to take partnerships with our Congressional Black Caucus from the state level. We have to, in Georgia, I'm almost sure we have the largest Black Caucus and we have the largest Congressional Black Caucus Georgia delegation in the Congressional Black Caucus. We also have to partner with our new president and his administration to, because what happened with our elections in Georgia, everyone says, oh, we got to do what Georgia did. We got to do what Georgia did. But what may not be obvious is that we got to this point. Now, they stole the election from Stacey Abrams, but we got to this point because of lawsuits. There were several, 3 from Fair Fight, the other 2 from other organizations, but we have to meet them where it matters and meet them where it hurts, because at the end of the day, they will continue to try to do this throughout the 50 states.
Well, you're absolutely right. It is going to be a significant battle, which is why I said it in Florida after Amendment 4 passed. Gird yourself for the battle. Same thing here, because Republicans, they are desperate. They do not want to see Stacey Abrams elected governor next year. They do not want to see Pastor Raphael Warnock reelected to a year term next year as well. So they're going to do all they can. And so I promise that Unfiltered will be back in this state doing all they can to help you, the Black Caucus, and others. Because, again, these are issues that affect us in a unique way. And if they are successful in Georgia, other Republicans across the country will see that and say, we can do it as well. So we certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing, Senator Anderson, and the Black Caucus.
Thank you so much, Roland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alicia Cross, I want to go to you. Again, this is what I've always said. In the history of America, Black success has always been followed by white backlash. And the success of Black people voting in the state in December, first of all, in January, the success of Black people voting in electing Ossoff and Warnock and rewarding this state to Biden and Harris, white backlash. That's what this is. That's how they operate.
Again, nail on the head. Republicans have a playbook, and the playbook is let's create fear, let's create chaos and mayhem, let's act as the fraud is real and the only real coming from them as they continue to try to access to the polls. The question I have here is that the writing was all. Stacey Abrams, Fair Fight, several organizations on the ground, including the ACLU and others, have been doing the work to ensure enfranchisement of African Americans, doing the work to ensure Blacks in the cities as well as in the rural areas came out to vote rolls, making sure that the suburbs were seen in large number. And this is work that had been laid for over a decade. At some point, there had to be some level of inkling that things the winds of change might come about in the great state of Georgia. So we see this. We see African Americans come out in droves. We see record number. We see that turnout be amazing, not only in terms of early voting, but also in terms of mail-in voting, which they work very hard to advocate. And the response isn't, hey, Republican Party, let's think about what we can do to engage African Americans. Let's think about what we can do in terms of outreach. Let's think about what we can do in terms of policies that don't not only disenfranchise, but also try to keep Black folk back in the place that they think that we belong. Let's do some things that don't resemble Confederacy. Oh no, their response is let's keep those Negroes from going to the polls, let's keep them from voting in general. Let's ensure these rights that they have, the rights that we have as American citizens are eradicated and chipped away by creating these bills, pushing them at the state legislature where Republicans have the power, pushing them at the state legislature where they know that if they create these barriers, that they can totally erase many of the wins that we've seen over this past election, because they want to do this and they want to hyper speed it. They want to do this in record time because they are afraid that in midterms, this population is going to come again. That now that Black people understand their power, Black people understand, just how much their vote actually matters in Georgia, that they're going to continue to come out. So in order to erase all of that, It's not to run better Republican candidates and not be racist. It's to stop Black people from actually showing up by stopping souls to the polls, by limiting the voting, by making it harder to actually show up, by removing some of the polling places, by doing all that they can. Voter ID laws. We're seeing this time and time again. It's not just Georgia. It's other states where Black voter turnout was strong as well. It's almost in every state, ironically, but not so much. President Trump actually tried to challenge the vote up because Black people showed up in force. I think that this is one of those times where we're seeing American history become America's present, where the argument to sit down, shut up, make sure Black voices aren't heard, but progress has come too swiftly for a lot of white people, particularly Republicans across this country. They're uncomfortable, and they don't want to be uncomfortable. And the only way to reach their comfort again is to ensure that Black people lose voice.
Mustafa, for those folks who are watching, this is also why we're emphasizing state elections, because those who control the legislatures are these rules. And there were a lot of people who voted for President Obama in 2008 who did not in 2010. That's for the Republicans to cement the power controlling legislatures. All of these things together, they're all entwined. You can't just say President, U.S. Senate, congressional races, I'm good. No, it's gubernatorial, it's state senator, it's state representative. They all together.
And that's why, it's so important to us. One, the reason everybody be going out and getting everybody to watch this show, that you actually get educated. And that's why you also support the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. And you have to support the National Black Mayors and others who are sides of these polls, navigating, trying to make sure that you don't get pimped. That's the only way I know to say it. So that you get pimped by these sets of actions that folks are doing to literally to take power from you and from your communities and resources. And also help you to understand the playbook that was just talked about a little. So, sets of actions have been going on. Instruction, they saw too many Black folks actually getting elected to offices and others, and then they began to tighten up and to change the rules. And the same thing in the 50s and the 60s. And then I would also say that they did the same when Newt Gingrich and them came in on the state level to be able to sort of entrench their power. And now we find ourselves today. I just want to remind folks, there are two dynamics that are going on. You have the foot soldiers, white nationalists, who formed the Capitol and who did those egregious behaviors that everybody saw. And then you have the strategists. The strategists are the folks at the Heritage Foundation. They're the brothers and other individuals who are actually helping to fund and also helping to write many of these laws to support them so that they can get instituted. So if you don't understand the game, then you're going to get played. So you got to understand, we got to address the white nationalists, also got to address these strategists who are the ones who are putting things in place in states across the nation to hold on to power as they can. We've highlighted for you before here on this show how similar these sets of actions what folks did in South Africa during apartheid, when they knew that the numbers were not there for them to hold on to power. They began to play these games both on the writing of legislation and then also holding on to power with judges and attorneys and district attorneys and all these other things that we have in our country relate to the same things that happened in South Africa.
Just so people understand, you're there in Michigan. Perfect example, Democratic governor there. Republicans right now are so set with her COVID mandate. They're with the spending of $1 billion in COVID funds to force her to back down. That's what Republicans do when they have an agenda. They wield power, are ruthless, and they're gangster when it comes to power.
Yeah, Roland, I want to make it clear that I'm actually from Michigan, but since we have relocated here to the D.C. area, but I'm very much aware of what's happening in the state of Michigan. And one of the things about politics and why people are so sick of it is because it's called the game of politics. Unfortunately, because I've been in this thing for quite some time, and what you'll find too is that many of these individuals are obviously in bed with each other. You know what I mean? They put on a certain look to the public just to put on a certain look. So that way it portrays that, they're still down for this side or that side. But when they get off camera, you got to understand that, or what people got to understand is that some of these people are in cahoots. They're at each other's weddings. They're going to dinner. They're doing all these things, man. And so in the state of Michigan, man, I've had, like, for example, I know some of you guys mentioned racism, for example. Racism doesn't have a side. It's the evil of a person's heart for the most part, because I have actually experienced some things in Calhoun County, Michigan myself, and actually had to call some things to task. And it was not necessarily from Republicans. It was actually from Democrats. As a matter of fact, in Calhoun County in 2012, there were buttons of Obama portrayed as a monkey. And so many of us had to come out at the NACP, because I am also a former NACP president, a local branch president as well. And so we had to call those people to task. But unfortunately, stuff like that happened in the state of Michigan, and in particular Calhoun County. Some of that gets brushed under the rug. So I want to make it clear that when it comes to these types of things, and Black people have to be very careful to understand that we should always be on the side of right. You know, I look at things from if it's just or unjust. I don't actually put things in categories, if you will. And so in the state of Michigan, for example, I know the governor, she's coming under great scrutiny as well. And in some cases, she rightfully should be, because it's impacting a lot of local small business owners. For example, in the city of Detroit, you know, who's 80% Black, you got a lot of small Black-owned businesses, man, that are not being able to survive simply because of some of the mandates that she's placing on. And so my heart really goes out to those people, because we want to see those Black businesses flourish and do well. And so anyway, I just wanted to put that out there to make for sure that we're holding everybody to task, regardless of right, left, blue, red, or whatever. As a people, we're losing, man. And so we got to gain some ground and get our power back. And the power to get it back is obviously at the election box, but also electing people that have our best interest at heart in the end.
You're absolutely right about that. And what that means is that people are going to have to engage in this particular battle. Earlier today, I had the opportunity with my frat brother, Ambassador Young. Always great to see him. 88 years old. He is slow a little bit, but his mind is sharp as ever. We had an opportunity to talk about not just the issue of minimum wage, but also what we need to do when it comes to, for that filibuster, to get rid of, to pass that John Lewis vote and the George Floyd Act. Here is some of our conversation a little bit earlier today. Ambassador Young, there's a really aggressive fight right now led by our frat brother, Reverend William Barber, and others on this $15 minimum wage, living wage. They're pushing Congress, trying to get Senator Joe Manchin and others. What more should they be doing, and what should they be saying to these members of Congress to get them to understand why this is critically important?
Well, I'm not sure about where the Congress is, but it's something that has to happen, and it can happen all at once, or they can have a gradual increase over a short period of time. I got waylaid by a number of Black businessmen here in Atlanta, and they were saying they were already underwater and they couldn't move immediately. And I don't know how it's going to work out, but we could get to that. And when I became mayor, that's the first decision I made, that there would be nobody on our payroll that made less than the poverty line. Mm-hmm. And we immediately raised garbage workers, everybody. So everybody but me. And in fact, now the sanitators and the water workers are making more than I made as mayor. And then pensions, and I didn't get a pension. But you have to look out for the people who are the essential workers. That's the best thing. The best terms come out of Black Lives Matter and pandemic. Essential workers.
That's right.
Because we used to talk about poor people, everybody gets turned off.
Right.
When you realize that you can't run a hospital, so you can't have a clean city if you have trash in the streets and open sewers, and if your water is not clean coming out of the tap. We learned that from Flint. But every city has got to be very careful about when they turn on water, mm-hmm. especially for drinking water.
And those workers matter. People, when you go in the grocery stores, they keep us alive. Right.
And they are essential the survival of any urban area.
Trust me, grocery stores, when the grocery stores shut down, I don't care how much money you have, bottom line, you're going to have. Sunday was 81st birthday, the late Congressman John Lewis. Same thing. Republicans all across this country are trying to push these voter suppression laws. Georgia, they real mad because Biden winning the state and Warnock and Ossoff. And you got Manchin, Seema, Feinstein in the Senate. We don't want to get rid of the filibuster. Bottom line is this here. Democrats don't get rid of filibuster. They cannot pass the Johns Voting Act to front what the Republicans are doing. And this is where I'm saying it's going to take a mass of folk hitting D.C. saying, y'all going to get rid of the filibuster to pass this, because if you don't, they're going to steal the election in 2022. You got to get rid of the filibuster to put Florida Justice Act and for that John Lewis Act.
Yeah, no question about that. And I'm hoping, and again, I was surprised to Selma that we got the Voting Rights Act so quickly and really so easily. But Lyndon Johnson was committed, and Lyndon Johnson knew the Senate. Well, Joe Biden is committed. Biden knows the Senate. The question is, do we have enough leverage, and can we keep our troops together? And our troops are not just black troops. Mm-hmm. I think one of the best thing happened as a result of Black Lives Matter is that white people realized that, and Dr. King told this to business people in Birmingham. He said, look, you cannot keep us down in the gutter if you don't keep one foot on us down with us. And said, if you're gonna get out of the gutter, you gotta let us out of the gutter, and we can stand together as brothers, and we can do things and go places. And you can see in Birmingham, you can see that in Atlanta. And we've got to have, well, Citigroup did a study that said discrimination cost the economy $16.5 trillion between 2000 and 2020. Well, the whole national gross national product is just 19 trillion a year. So 16 trillion is a lot of money. And I think that all of a sudden we hearing bankers, and we're hearing at Walmart, we're hearing people realize that the fortune is at the bottom of the pyramid. And if you're going to grow the economy, you can't grow from the top down. You grow it from the bottom up. I think that if we can sell that lesson, document it for the Congress, and help them get some of the petty racism. Racism does not pay. It is ignorant, it is stupid. And you're hurting yourself as much as you're hurting anybody else. But people have lived so long, they're threatened by challenges that come with social change.
Love to give up that power on that.
Well, it is and it isn't, see? Like, I was preaching Sunday. I preach on Sunday in my church, and I ran across a kid, my next door neighbor. There was an article that I would have missed, but he made a lot of money back when it was mayor and I was mayor and we were building an airport and the Olympics. He was a project manager on all this. But he doesn't throw away, he doesn't live flashy, and he's quiet. And the article found out that he's investing in the high-tech startup. And he's been an angel down for the last 20 years, see? And that's beginning to pay off. This, like, somebody put some money into this. Mm-hmm. This didn't just happen, see? And you have to invest money to make money.
That's right.
And starting with MARTA, our mass transit system, in 1971, we have made sure that black entrepreneurs get a piece of every action. Started with 20% of the overall price. Male, 25% in every contract. When I came along, I just gradually eat up to 40%. And when they asked me about it, they said, that's too much. I said, not enough. I said, look, if we bring the Olympics here, 40% of $2 billion, see, sounds like a lot of money, but that's chicken change compared to what's gonna come in here to get the Olympics. And we get the Olympics, we might have $2 billion, but be 10 to 20 billion coming in that the city doesn't control. I said, now you're gonna get 95% of 20 billion, see? But if you get to fighting about 40% of $2 billion, you're not gonna get in. Because people do not invest money. And they come to places where there's racial turmoil, see? So it's a constant education job that God put the world together so that we either learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools.
Well, we're having that battle. There was a study that was done that showed the federal government over 5 years spent $5 billion in media advertising. Black media only got $51 million out of the $5 billion. And the same with these ad agencies. I have made this a mission on my show, and I've had some black folks who've said, Roland, I think you're being too harsh. I think you're pushing too hard. I said, folks, I can't be satisfied with 1%.
No, it's not you. See, it's if they want. I mean, take Popeyes in Atlanta. Popeyes is largely, well, Hank Aaron owned a lot of them, but we had a real recession going till Popeyes comes out with an sandwich. And next thing you know, they got lines behind everybody. And people actually fight in line to get those sandwiches. And it's do you have a thriving, growing economy, or do you have a sick, dying economy?
Yep.
Now, you can hold on to what you got, and you get sick and die with it. And you can't take it with you. See? But you can reinvest it, and you can grow it, and then you even be able to get heaven in spite of your past sins. Because the Bible that I read says, when you get to the gates, they're going to ask you, did you feed me hungry? But I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. I was sick and in prison and you visited me. And they asked the Lord, well, we see you, Lord, inasmuch as you did it unto the least of these, my brethren, you did it unto me. Now, there are a whole lot of rich old folks that don't know what to do with their money. And pass it on to their children and grandchildren without any values, without any vision, and without a sense of responsibility for the kingdom of God here on earth. Then they're creating hell on earth. I mean, that's what is boredom and too much money that gets people into drugs. See, and that is responsible for a lot of the chaos in our individual lives. And the most dangerous thing I think about the last president was there were no values.
None.
No values about anything but Atlantic. We are in a dangerous time, and we've got to move quickly, At the same time, I was preaching Sunday, and I was talking about the virus and how did we get on top of that. I looked it up, and I found that there was somebody by the name of Kismek. I said, now what nationality is that? And I said, where is she from? And I looked, and she's from a little country town in North Carolina. I said, that's a Blama-made name. You know, Kiki or Kizzy is a sister.
Right.
And she was smart. They took her out of her elementary school and put her in a specialist, you know, special education. And they treated her fairly. And then she got a grant, got a doctorate at University of North Carolina. And I don't know if she ended up doing it, but she was interested in tropical viruses 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and just 34 now. She spent 6 years in Lanka, the Indian subcontinent, in these tropical viruses. So when they came around, nobody knew anything about it. But they realized, yeah, Sister Kitty has been studying this when nobody understood that it would one day be important. And so the Lord always has a ram in the bush and is so proud that is a sister from North Carolina. And that was the reason I called up Morehouse Medical School. I said, wait a minute, I want a shot that the sister developed.
So you were not afraid of taking that?
Oh no, look, I've been taking shots since I was 2 years old, and I'm 8, and they ain't heard that. See?
Oh my goodness, Ambassador Andrew Young. Tomorrow on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we're sharing part where he talked about the importance of African Americans taking the 19 vaccine. And so we look forward to that with you. Got a break. When we come back from Atlanta, we'll talk with Herb Washington, who is suing McDonald's, saying they purposely ended hurt his franchises with the company to help white franchisees. That interview is next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. And for me, the reason I see the value, so my parents worked elections. They volunteered for campaigns. They ran phone banks. I remember being 7, 8, 9 years old. It was like you had no choice. It's not like you had a vote. Like, yo, go over there for the next hours, stand there and hand out these to anybody who's walking in, and then we'll bring you lunch, and then you got some water for yourself. It's kind of like, okay. Again, that was what wasn't like my brother could say, nah, we're all right. We're gonna stay at the house. It didn't work that way. And so for me, that was a huge part of my upbringing.
And look at you now. And it's very interesting because for me, service was a huge part of my upbringing. And that's just something that's just, you know, it's a natural thing. I don't think twice about going out and doing community service. I don't think twice about giving up my Saturday mornings, even if I stayed out late on Friday nights. I don't think twice about going to church in the mornings. I think that might be even bigger than the civics piece in schools. I mean, I think that at this point, having that in schools at least gives the children the opportunity to go home and ask their parents, so Mom, Dad, what is this? What do you think we should do about this? This is what I learned in school today. Let's talk about it. At least gives the children something to bring home and start a conversation with. However, if the parents start that for the children, then, you know, then the children can go to school and say, hey, why am I not learning this here? Why don't I have a civics class? You know what I mean? And we'll have more Roland Martins running around here.
I'm Deion Cole, and you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Stay woke.
Folks, one of the things that we've been doing here on Roland Martin Unfiltered is we have been focusing on economics, business opportunities, and what happens when we are frozen out of being able to participate in the billions that are developed, spent, and earned in this country. We've covered several times Black McDonald franchisees who have been suing the company, saying they have been systematically eliminated as owners and operators of various stores. We told you last week about Herb Washington, who filed a lawsuit against McDonald's, saying that he was systematically hurt by the company. He joins us right now along with his attorney, Kevin Conway. Glad to have both of you on the show. Herb, first and foremost, you played Major League Baseball. You were very competitive in that. We have Herb on the phone. We have Kevin via video. Herb, you played Major League Baseball, did there, was to go into business. At one time, you owned McDonald's franchisees than any other African American. But your lawsuit alleges that all began to come crashing down, and you say McDonald's was really helping white franchisees put you out of business.
Hey, Roland, thanks for having me, man. I'm a fan. I haven't seen a couple of years when you visited us at the National Black McDonald's convention in Houston, man. I remember your
yes,
talk.
indeed.
It was very helpful. But to your question, yeah, absolutely. There's a two-tier system in McDonald's. White operators, and the system is set up so that white operators can flirt at the expense of black operators. More specifically, McDonald's. Here's what happens. White operators have lower rents. Their cash flows are higher. Black operators are relegated in large to inner city, tougher to run, associated with it. My counterpart of that. So that when it's to your restaurant, many operators are exiting the system. If you have a store in Buckhead, the store somewhere that is not as, you get less for it. In most cases, less volume. So when you combine those things and you go to exit McDonald's, most black operators, the most system broke. That's right. Most black McDonald's owners leave the system broke.
I want to pull in Kevin right here. Kevin, this is not the only franchisee who is suing McDonald's. There are a number of others. The number of black McDonald's franchisees has dropped significantly in the past 20 years, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. In recent history, there was upwards of 388 black operators, and it's down to 186. And you have this recent administration in McDonald's who has gone to triple cash flow gap between those stores and stores. Also, at the same time, you have corporate America, corporate McDonald's, going from 40 executives down to 7 within this most recent administration.
Kevin, they're touching your microphone when you're moving there, so it's actually blocking what you're saying. So it was hard to make that out. And so if you could just again lay it out again where you said the number of franchises, how they have dropped in the past decade or so.
Sure. Yeah, the black operators have dropped in history from 308 to 180. So it's been about a drop of almost half of the American representation in the McDonald's system. And I was saying the recent administration of McDonald's, the cash flow between black operators and operators has tripled. So looking at upwards of 100 to 900,000 less for a black-led operation than a white-led operation, because this is a case of redlining black operators into inner stores that are low volume, and they're in impoverished communities, and they require security and more upkeep than high volume stores out in the suburbs. When black operators try to get stores in the suburbs, McDonald's had a first refusal to lock that.
Herb, McDonald's says that the real issue here was that you have been facing business, just that they invested significantly in your organization and tried to help you. They also quote, "This situation is the result of years of management by Mr. Washington, whose organization has failed to meet many of our on people, operations, satisfaction, and your response to that, McDonald."
Absolutely. You know, here's what I would say to you, Roland. I've been a McDonald's owner 40 years. You don't keep a bad act for 40 years. I don't care if it's your relative. If they're bad, they have to go. And it wouldn't take you 40 years to recognize that if you were to my track record to a McDonald's account straight until the new one came in. Is Steve who McDonald's because he was having relationships, allegedly, and they let him go. the CEO of the company, and his number two guy, who is now the McDonald's. It all started then. And you know what? Major push in McDonald's. Most McDonald's look beautiful. And, I was the last person document to go forward. And the reason is because I was concerned with how do I pay for this reinvestment? And McDonald's couldn't tell how much it was going to cost me. And I numerous occasions to vice presidents and everyone who would listen, would you move into us and not know what you're missing? McDonald's was asking me. Now, when it comes to investment, McDonald's has not given me one penny, no, let me take that back, of relief. Recently, McDonald's took a look at Black owners to take how they help the flow gap that I spoke of earlier. So, I'm to Herb Washington, a meeting. At the conclusion of that, take a guess if they offered me.
Much.
Counted to over the quarter, $6 per day. And it was on one restaurant, of which McDonald's has cited for sale by June. So that savings that they were going to help me, restaurant, then guess what? That goes away also. McDonald's has not helped Herb Washington. They haven't lowered my rent, paid my bills, none of them. Now, any McDonald's has done, they've done for the masses. No special treatment. Mismanagement, anything they can cite that they might call mismanagement, we can go and cite white operators with similar situation. McDonald's, a strong Black man speaking up about the racism that's what this is. Don't get hoodwinked on some operation things that they bring up. Stay around for years and run bands. You don't do that. Ask McDonald's. Is there
Kevin, final question. Is it your goal here to be to seek relief solely for Herb, or is it to get McDonald's to change its practices and do right by all Black McDonald's franchisees?
Yeah, it's an easy answer, Roland. We want a total change at McDonald's, their corporate practices and policies. And we want to hold them accountable for the 40 years of racial discrimination that they have put on Herb Washington. That's an easy answer. It's both. McDonald's needs a total reimagine of what the last stronghold of power looks like, and that's the boardroom. This is the last stronghold of power, which makes it the very last battlefield. And until a Black man or woman feel like an equal on the street and in the seat, we're not having real progress. You were talking about business, economic success. This is it right here. This is the last battlefront.
Black female.
Okay. Herb, I'm sorry, final comment, yeah. Herb, go ahead.
Yeah, this is happening across the country. Black female have sued McDonald's, former McDonald's owners, there's current McDonald's owners, and hourly employees suing McDonald's. Across here, McDonald's has a problem with Black franchisees, hold them accountable. Because McDonald's of the industry.
Gentlemen, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
Bring my panel back for this conversation. Terrace, I want to start with you. And that is, look, very few people want to go the route of litigation, but that means you're spending money. You have to actually, sue folks. And that's just not what folks want to do. But one of the reasons we have this segment called Where's Our Money? Social Economic Justice, because we're talking about, again, ensuring that the millions and billions and trillions being spent in this country, that African Americans are participating. You heard Ambassador Andrew Young talk about the Citibank study that shows the cost of racism, some $16 trillion over the last 2 decades. That's real for Black folk.
Yeah, so you know what, man, Roland, and first of all, I appreciate that you actually showed that clip with Andrew Young, because he was speaking to my soul, man, because, and then now even this segment, because really this thing is about economics. African Americans, or Black Americans, should I say, in this country, man, you're absolutely right. They don't want to go to litigation because obviously it is very expensive, and you're not certain that you're going to get your due diligence or your due justice in the end. And so, but one of the things that I do realize is that as a people, man, ultimately we want to win. We want to win as any other American that we have throughout this country. We want to win because obviously our ancestors helped to build the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And we should do everything in our power to protect that, and also the American dream that they had dreamed for us to have. And so again, back to what I'm saying, man, this thing is truly about economics, because economics helps to level the playing field. It leverages everything. And so what those gentlemen were actually speaking to, man, they're absolutely right. I look at what Dr. Claude Anderson had said, and I'm sure you have probably heard this as well. Dr. Claude Anderson said this, that if you didn't get anything in the position of number 2, you're now number 3. And not long from now, we're going to find ourselves population-wise in the 4th spot, which is going to be a little bit more difficult to leverage our economic power. And not only that, we need to obviously pool our resources together and really start supporting our businesses together to be able to survive in the end, in the long haul. Because let's be honest, man, I mean, we have some of the most powerful buying power. As a matter of one statistic I heard early on, I heard that we have so much buying power, it's like 1.2 trillion that's flowing through the African-American community, enough to be the 9th or 10th wealthiest nation on the planet, but yet we own very little. But yet some who come from India, they own 1/3 of the hotel industry in this country. And so we really have to really get really refocused on what really matters. And even our educational system, I mean, I can go on and on for that because I'm an educator by profession. But my point is, man, economically, this is what this really is all about, us being able to leverage ourselves and make sure that we have a seat at every table that we get an opportunity to be at. So thanks for sharing that.
Mustafa, the thing that I believe that has to happen, I think, for me, is that we have to begin to ask questions extremely deliberate with our dollars. What I mean by that is, if there are individuals who work for companies who want to, excuse me, join the NAACP, National Urban League Board, want to join local groups, we should establish a race equity index. And it should be Black board members, Black senior executives, Black minority development in terms of what is spending, PR agencies, working with Black-owned media companies, and then if you aren't doing those things, then you can't come join organizations. See, I just think that, and I think we as consumers have to also at that point. I remember shortly after George Floyd's death, knew the story of how many publicly traded companies had no Black board members. One of those companies was TJ Maxx. And I began to tweet things out saying, Black folks, we just running up TJ Maxx, buying stuff, and it's like, they have no Black board members. We have to be, as Dr. King said, we must redistribute pain and be very conscious about where we're spending our dollars.
True.
Well, I love our fraternity, brother. Mustafa. Yeah, I said, I love our fraternity, brother, but I often want to say that we have to stop funding our own oppression. And what that means is that we have to adjust this and an equity analysis, as you alluded to. Earlier I was on with, I think, 100 of the largest philanthropic and organizations in our country. And I was very clear. What's your board look like? What's your senior look like? And what does your funding structure like? And what's the sets of projects you're putting in place to change the dynamic happening inside of our country? We look at McDonald's. We're often fooled. It's the window dressing sometimes gets you, right? You study Black and brown folks commercials, and there's small amounts that are net go to certain institutions, the educational side. Look at the infrastructure side of these corporate entities, then that's where the truth is actually told. About ownership look like? What does the supportership look like? What does support for funding for them to be able to grow and to be sustainable actually like? It's interesting, and I'll close with this real quickly, Roland. Ava DuVernay is a genius. When she did Queen Sugar, you actually can take lessons that are learned from that and apply a McDonald's situation. Family has the most land, having difficulty and get the financing and being able to product, because there are others who own the other aspects, the refineries and those types of things, to actually take that chain and turn it into a product. Same thing with McDonald's. You have the brick and mortar, but if you don't have the other support, and then there are entities that are stopping you, it puts you in a very difficult position and in a very disenfranchised position. We have the power to change that dynamic, our dollars.
And again, Alicia, these allegations Herb Washington is leveling in a lawsuit. They have not been adjudicated. McDonald disputes these allegations. But the thing that I really want us to really make clear, and this was when and Ambassador Andrew Young and I talked about it. We talked specifically about same thing, political parties, politicians coming to us, wanting our votes, allowing white advertising folks to control the flow of dollars, then those are not coming back to us in a significant way. And I know people keep saying, well, you keep bringing up the advertising dollars. Yes, because again, it is the denial of dollars that keeps us from being able to build capacity. I'm here in Atlanta working on a project. We've got a team of 8, 9 people. Those folks have to pay. And guess what? A lot of black media companies can't do what we're doing. But here's the other thing, Amisha, that's also important. And let me just go ahead and say this, and it fits a whole lot of people. A whole lot of people. Let me just be as clear as possible into this camera. I'm going to get to this camera right here, okay? Let me be as clear as possible to all y'all. I'm also need these black people who want to come on this show, who want to come black platforms, who want to raise hell, want black folks to their aid. They want folks to tweet. They want black call, black folks to email. When they settle suits, don't hear from them again, or they disappear. And then the question is, how are you spending your dollars? What are you doing? I've had folk who have come on this show who we have talked about what they've been dealt with and have not spent a single, in fact, were not even deep enough to bring the Funk Fan Club for $50. So, there were people doing Operation Breadbasket. Let me go ahead and just this here because I need people to understand that I'm not put this subject. See, what you're not gonna do is come and want black people to stand with them and disappear. Operation Breadbasket, I'm gonna give y'all this, I'm gonna tell y'all this actually happened. Dr. King, this is literally in the Martin Depp's book. SCLC was having trouble making their payroll. Dr. King said, Jesse, when we go to Chicago, let's go by Independence Bank, let's go by some of the black banks to see if we can get a loan to help pay our payroll. Dr. King comes to town and he says, Reverend Jackson says, Doc, that's what they call Dr. King, Doc, let's stop by so-and-so's house first. Doc said, Jesse, we don't have time for that. We need to go meet with the black banks. He said, Doc, just trust me. Let's go to the meeting. Dr. King walks into the house, and there are a group of black businessmen in the house. And after they greet each other, they then sit down. And Dr. King they then hand Dr. King an envelope. And in that envelope was enough money to pay the bills of SCLC for several months. Dr. King began to cry and said he had never experienced that of all the folks they had helped around the country. And Amisha, Reverend Jackson, same thing. There's a whole bunch of black people who became millionaires because of the protests and the boycotts of Operation Breadbasket and Rainbow Push. And some of those folk did not write checks back to help the very people who stood with them. So all I'm saying is, if you gonna come to black America to stand with you, well, you damn sure bet not go missing in action after you cut a deal.
Take them to church. I feel like this is a point, there are some Black people who have called on the support of various nations, particularly when they belonged in police brutality cases, education cases, in cases around the country where we've seen high levels of discrimination. And then once they get their settlements, they completely not only do they not engage in organizations, but they also do not fund them. And it's one of the sad things, because if we don't fund our own, if we don't fund our things, it's going to be very hard for them to help the next individual or the next family that is aggrieved. But in addition to that, I think that from what I saw earlier from the ambassador, one that really stood out was and you talked about this on your show, Roland, was the importance of understanding your value and having a seat at the table, but also fully recognizing that we can't do the work that we need to do in advocacy and getting elected officials to that spot who actually need to be elected to push policy on behalf of African Americans who are suffering across this country if there is no money involved. We can talk about hope and change and pushing advocacy as much as we want, but we need to have those ad buys. We need to have more boots on the ground. We need to make sure that we're reaching people, in the digital space, that we're reaching people by knocking on doors, that we're reaching people through those TV spots. That takes money. That is the influence. And anybody who believes that you can do that with cash is completely ridiculous and living in an alternate universe. With that being said, what frustrates me personally is that we see Black elected officials, we see, strong liberal elected officials who don't want to look like us, who count on and need the votes of our community, consistently hire white firms, consistently, will deny the consulting firm of the Atlanta African American group to go with the white firm, even though the people who they need the most in terms of electoral support come from the Black community. So part of this is also on, civic campaigns and who they choose to elevate, who they don't. The other part is having a full acknowledgement as one who happens to, if you are a Black entrepreneur, if you are a person who has a consult firm, do what you do on this show, Roland, put them on blast. Because at the end of the day, trolleying up votes and getting us to come out and support these candidates, one thing, but it's also extremely important for those candidates, organizations to put the money where their mouth is, support the Black community, support that diversity, make sure that you're not just pushing it in paperwork, that you're not just being on the campaign trail, that you're actually investing in and acknowledging all the and skills of those African Americans, not just the ones that you need to get to the polls for you, but also the ones who are running the ad agencies, the ones who are actually pushing the ads, the Black media. Make sure that you're investing in those, because that's the only way we stop.
And I need everybody to understand, what I'm describing is more than one person. There are multiple people who I'm talking about. And if hit hollers, then I'm talking you. All I'm saying is here, if you are Black and you want to come to Black America to stand with you in your battles, well, then we fully expect you to stand with Black America. All I'm saying is, I warned you, don't let me have to do this again, because then I might start naming names. Go to a break. When we come back, powerful testimony at the Senate hearing when it to the riot January 6th. Also, the Senate confirms a sister to be the United Nations ambassador. Plus, we'll talk to a Black bookstore in Washington, D.C. in our marketplace segment. Yeah, here we support Black-owned businesses, give them an opportunity to talk about their businesses. All of that next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Atlanta.
When you think about the fact that 2043, we are going to be a nation that's majority people of color. I've really focused on this a lot, on television, on radio, in my speeches. That my focus is trying to prepare us to have demographic power while also having educational, economic power at the same time. Because there's nothing worse than having demographic numbers, but then you still don't have that economic power, that political power, and education power.
Well, you and I think most people know and understand that education is what we've got to impress on all of our people. We've got to help people to understand that if you want a decent quality of life, if you want the kind of quality of life where you're not having to worry about your food and your nutrition and, being able to pay your bills or buy a house, then you've got to become educated. The more education you have, the larger the paycheck is. And of course, we've got to be involved in entrepreneurship, taken the talent that we have to create businesses. And there's a lot of opportunity for that.
Hi, I'm Vivian Green.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, in our marketplace segment, we're going to talk about Mahogany Books. They opened in 2007 to meet the needs of readers nationwide who were interested in books written for or about people in the African diaspora. After being an online-only bookstore, they were able to open the doors to its first physical store located in D.C. Just right now is Derek Young and Ramunda Young. They are co-founders of Mahogany Books. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? How are you, sir?
Hey, Roland, how are you? Thank you for having us.
Doing great, doing great. I got to ask you this here. I mean, a lot of folks, of course, staying at home. COVID is keeping folks out. Have you seen an explosion of folks buying books? Because what the hell else you going to do?
Exactly, right? Actually, we did, to be frank. So, like you mentioned, we've been in business since 2007, and we started online. And so our website had already been equipped to ship books to customers all across the nation. We have a great customer base. And so when COVID kicked in, we didn't have to tweak our website. We really could focus on our energy by focusing and making a priority what our customers needed, really listening to them. So with all these parents having their kids at home, we really turned to creating children's book bundles because, like you said, what are you going to do but read? And so we really tried to make it simple for the families. We made bundles for elementary age. We had another bundle of books for kids from middle school, high school, so parents could just easily point and click. So that's what we did. We really focused in on what customers were reading at that point. We also created Blind Date with a Black book. So a lot of people were excited and always looking to us for our curated books and what we liked. And so we created a bundle so people didn't know what they were going to get, but we chose the books and people were excited to have that surprise land on their doorstep. So yes, people were reading like crazy during the pandemic.
Derek, how do you also get people to take the extra step to order their books online from you, as opposed to the ease of Amazon? You got Barnes and Noble, and folks like, yeah, but Prime is free, because again, you're not just competing with other small bookstores. I mean, you're competing against behemoths that frankly make it easy for folks just to press one button, boom, it shows up tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've done from the very beginning was be true to ourselves. We knew that we were going to compete with Amazon on prices and all these other different things that they do. But what we do is we know Black books. So we focused in on the curation of the books, on finding books that people didn't even know existed, on making sure that people understood that there were a wide variety of voices out there telling our stories. So those books weren't being promoted or merchandised on our competitors' websites like we're on ours. So that's what we really focused in on, to make sure that if you wanted to hear something that talked about yourself, that went into your history, that reflected our values, our wants, our needs, then you came to Mahogany Books to find those books.
So Ramunda, if I'm, let's say there's a particular book that is hard to find, and so could someone contact y'all and say, "Hey, this is the book that I'm looking for. Can you find this particular book?" And then what is your process for doing that?
Absolutely. So we work with one of the world's largest, actually the world's largest distributors. So almost any book in print we have access to, almost. And so what our customers can do, if they don't find it on our website or amongst the thousands of books that we have there, they can easily call our store. We have a great team of people that can take those calls and fulfill those orders, place those orders over the phone, and still have it shipped to their house. So there's a couple of different ways, because customer service is very important to us. I'll be honest, it was crazy during those last few months of last year when it was just an onslaught of books, but in juggling all of that. But we love that we can cater to our customers in that way and offer them books that they can't find anywhere else. And to your point about people wanting to go other places, there has been for the past probably 5 or 6 years a strong push to shop Black. I know a lot of people are just seeing it in the last year, but there's been a steady increase of people saying, you know what, I'm choosing where I want to put my dollars and I want to put them with you guys. It's a book. It doesn't have to be here overnight. I'm okay with that. And so we know our customers, we know that they are open to that and that they really are supporting a Black business who's also turned around and active in the community. So we give books away to kids. So it's not just, oh, I can go get my books overnight. It's bigger than that. And we know that our customers seek that. And so that for us is an honor to be able to fulfill that niche for them.
All right, then, Derek, tell folks where they can find y'all if they want to begin placing orders now. And then also remind folks that when that big bestseller book comes out, let's say Barack Obama's book or Michelle Obama's book, if they want to get on the waiting list for it, they can contact y'all.
Yeah, indeed. So you can always go to MahoganyBooks.com. That's our online store website. We offer pre-orders on almost every book out. In fact, we're doing a bunch of pre-orders for Amanda Gorman's books, the fantastic young poet that was at the President Biden's inauguration. So again, they can go to MahoganyBooks.com. We're always promoting new books and on our Instagram, and all of our socials is at Mahogany Books.
Yeah, we'd love to be able to provide those books to anybody looking. You know, a lot of people think Black books are just for Black people. Everybody needs to read about our history. Everybody needs to know about the contributions we've made to this country and others too. So we're excited to be able to provide that for everyone.
All right, and we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Derek Young, Ramonda Young, Mahogany Books here in Washington, D.C. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
All right, thank you very much. This Amisha, is, again, when you're deliberate. And I think what we're talking about here is we're trying to get Black consumers to be deliberate in their actions, deliberate in their spending, deliberate. And even if you can't do it, you know, on everything, if you just say, hey, I'm going to make the effort. For example, you know, we are in Atlanta today. We're in Tuskegee, Alabama tomorrow. And be in Jacksonville, Florida on Thursday. And typically, and I've been with CNN, TV One. We've had these events, and we've had productions. And they say, well, hey, we're just going to order some food from Corner Bakery or here. I said, no. We're going to find a Black caterer or a Black restaurant that's in Atlanta. We're going to order the food from them. We're going to find out a Black-owned restaurant or caterer in Tuskegee, Alabama. We're going to order food from them. We're going to do the exact same thing in Jacksonville. I remember when I was at TV One, and folk could take this the wrong way, but I don't really care. It bothered me immensely when I would have big interviews, and they couldn't find no Black photographer, and I was like, damn. I said, if the Black media company don't hire a Black photographer, who the hell gonna hire Black photographers? And so I remember we had our PR person. It was her first day. This was probably her first week. This is the first time she had to encounter me. I said, come here. I said, the next time I have an interview here, I better see a Black photographer who y'all employ. And just understand that was a Black photographer after that every time, because I had to force them, a Black media company, to say, go find somebody who can do this, who's Black, to provide them a shot.
I think, Roland, to that point, part of this is you have to be intuitive and want to do, because I think that it's very easy for folks to get pulled away and, oh, I'm going to order this restaurant, or, oh, I'm going to invest in this, or I'm just going to Amazon thing. These are typically things that aren't top of mind for a lot of people, even though they should for Black people. If we talk about, raising our bed entrepreneurship, have more leaders and more people who are out here doing on their own and leaving something for theirs and future generations, we also have to, as a people, invest in those future generations, invest in those entrepreneurs who like us, make sure that we know who in our community has coffee shops, make sure that we know who in our community has sandwich shops, who in our community has entertainment venues, who in our community can serve as the makeup artists, the wedding planners, all of these things that people use on a regular basis. But I think that in many cases, because of lack of advertisement, sometimes it can get harder for them to reach the masses. But for Black people, there has to be an intuitive thing within us that says, no matter where we are, we should be looking for people who own these companies like us that we can actually take our dollars to. Because in many cases, that's the support that they need. That's how they drum attention. That's how they get what they need. I'm a native Chicagoan, so Sip and Savor, shout out to them. I love that coffee shop. That's the only coffee shop I go to in the entire city because it is owned by a man. It is owned by a man who was able to expand and have multiple coffee shops that carry name. In DC, I go to Mahogany Books.
Right.
I appreciate Mahogany Books. That's one of the stores that I believe, actually, because of what they also do for the community. As someone who's worked in education policy, I have a great respect for bookstores that are providing books for kids who otherwise would not be able to read. We have to intuitively make those decisions ourselves
Right.
and support our Black community.
Mustafa, again, we got to keep pushing it. We got to keep pushing it. Got to keep pushing it. The reason I keep talking about the Black media dollars is because then we're able to provide a Mahogany Books who may not be able to afford a big marketing advertising campaign, the opportunity to be on for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, which is invaluable for a Black-owned business.
If you want a community, be in community. And what that means is that you have to support each other. You know, Black doctors, my doctor is Black, my dentist is Black, my health food is Black, and I can go on. And that's because it's not just raising your right hand with a power fist when the moment comes. It is also about being very intentional about your dollar, because the dollar is power. And how we use it determine if we actually build wealth inside of our kids that then gives us leverage and power to do some other things, or if we continue to just let it float away and someone else does it.
Bottom line is, I really can do without the convenient Negroes who are conveniently when they need or desire something. And again, when we talk about the collective community, you got to actually be about. And again, here's the deal: if you do the community will take care.
Actually, you said it absolutely correct. If you take care of the community, and the word community obviously is a common union. And so I'm literally loving this segment right now because that's really what this thing is all about. And like we always talk about leverage. And one of the most frustrating things to me that I've actually seen even in my hometown of Battle Creek, Michigan, a lot of times in predominantly Black neighborhoods, we see everybody owning businesses except for people who live there. But unfortunately, what happens is they will come in and actually take those dollars and then they choose to live somewhere else. And so we constantly are seeing this all over the country where those dollars are leaving our community, going somewhere else, and yet we're still struggling. So I really appreciate that you are actually talking about, or that we're actually having this conversation right now. You don't understand, my heart is just really touched because we cannot no longer apologize for supporting our own because nobody else is. You know, nowhere in the United States that I know of that you can go to a Chinese restaurant and see somebody Black working there, or even somebody white for that matter, and they don't apologize for that. And so neither should we apologize for that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have to actually make for sure that we're supporting one another because we can lift ourselves up if we do that.
Well, and that's why I subscribe to that great financial wizard Frank Lucas in the movie American Gangster when Denzel Washington said, "I'm gonna get money."
Yes.
He said, "I'm gonna get that money." So somebody, I know he was a drug dealer. All I'm saying, y'all, is I'm cool with that phrase. I'm gonna get that money. That's what we got to be about in order to actually change the condition of our community, which is one of the reasons why we want you to support what we do here. Your resources allow for us to travel all across this country. I gotta shout out this. I'm trying to think. Do I want to give his name? Who literally I was looking at the day, and this brother sent in $5,000 for our show. He said, I'm tired of the show buffering on YouTube. So I want to help make sure, to help y'all build this OTT channel. Y'all know we're actually having them built right now. It cost $153,700. I told y'all I'm up with what these things cost. And so when you support us, we appreciate that. If you give to us on YouTube, remember, we get 55%, they get 45%. look, YouTube got enough money, okay? That's good. They got billions upon billions. So if y'all support us, please give direct, Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM. We also have Zelle, Roland S. Martin Terrace, Mustafa, and as well as appreciate all of y'all being on the panel today. I'm going to close the show out this way, okay? So hold on. I'm going to close the show out this way. I didn't forget, there was a hearing today, and this was powerful testimony. It's 8 minutes and 27 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and say holla right now, but I'm going to close the show out with Carnisha Mendoza, Captain Carnisha Mendoza, testifying on Capitol Hill today. It was real busy on Capitol Hill. Of course, we saw, of course, the Senate pass, first of all, vote to confirm Linda Thomas Greenfield to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. That took place. Also, we saw Governor Pritzker of Illinois in cash bail in that particular state. And so all those things happened. But this testimony by this sister describing what took place on Capitol Hill on January 6th was riveting. She was a surprise witness, and I wanted to be sure that you heard what she had to say. So we're going to close the show with this. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll be in Tuskegee, Alabama. I'm interviewing 90-year-old attorney Fred Gray, one of the unsung heroes. We're going to sit down and chat, and so look forward to that. Y'all take care. I'll see you. Holla!
Committee today, and thank you all for your service to our country. My name is Captain Carnisha Mendoza. I served with the United States Capitol Police for 19 years. I take a lot of pride in my job. Prior to serving with the Capitol Police, I served as an active duty soldier with the United States Army. My last duty station was split with the Pentagon and the Washington Area Criminal Investigations Division. I received various awards from the Army and the Capitol Police, to include an award for recovery during the Pentagon attack. Unfortunately, I didn't save any lives, but there are certain lessons that always stuck with me after 9/11. One of those lessons is knowing the unthinkable is always possible. Be ready. So I always take my job very seriously. 9/11 is always in the back of my mind. With the Capitol Police, served in various administrative and collateral. I'm currently serving as a captain in the Special Operations Division, where I have various responsibilities to include serving as commander and a field force commander for the Civil Disturbance Unit. Throughout my career, I've responded to various critical incidents and from congressional and security-related issues to shootings and armed carjackings. I have served as a CDU force commander for multiple events, including the November 14th Million MAGA March. In my career, I've been activated to demonstrations with controversial groups, called some of the worst names, many times that I'm pretty numb to it now. As an agency, we have trained and handled numerous demonstrations. It's something we do on a regular basis, and it's something I've felt we've excelled at. During the Million MAGA March, white supremacist groups, include the Proud Boys and others, converged on the Supreme Court with countergroups. The Servants Unit fought hard that day, breaking up fights and separating various groups. I literally woke up that day unable to move due to the pain. On January, we anticipated similar to the Million MAGA March this on November 14th, where we would likely face groups fighting among one another. The Civil Disturbance Unit invaded that day. I was working the evening to plan to report in at 3 p.m. I was prepared to work a 16-hour shift and assume force commander should the event continue into the evening and shifts. It was approximately 1:30 in the afternoon. I was eating with my 10-year-old, spending time with him before what I knew one day, when a fellow captain contacted me and told me things were bad and that I needed to respond in. I literally dropped everything to respond to work that day early. I arrived within 15 minutes and I contacted Batch to ask her what active scenes we had. I was advised pretty bad. I asked where assistance was and was advised of 6 active scenes. There was an explosive device at the Democratic National Committee, a second device at the Republican National Building, and large hostile at different locations outside the Capitol building. Dispatcher, I would respond to that building was closest to where I was at the time. And I heard officers at the building calling for immediate assistance, so I proceeded past the DC to the Capitol. As I arrived to the east front plaza of the Capitol, I heard an officer yell there was at the rotunda door. I heard various officers calling for us at multiple locations throughout the building. Many of the doors were not accessible to the size of the crowd. I was in a lower level door, the assistance of a Capitol division. Once inside the real door, I immediately saw a large crowd of possibly 200 rioters yelling in front of me. Since I was alone, I had to go back so I could enter another door. In the few seconds it took me to walk back to the door, there were already countless outside the building banging on the door. I had no choice but to proceed the silent crowd in the building. I made my way through the crowd by yelling and putting people out of my way until I saw Capitol Police civil disturbance units in riot gear. They were holding the hallway rioters from penetrating deeper into the building. I immediately in line with them to assist with holding the crowd. At this point, my right arm got wet between rioters and the rail along the wall. A CDU pulled my right arm free, and had he not, I'm certain it had been broken. Shortly after, an officer was pushed and fell to the floor. I assisted the officer to his location and got back in line. At some point, the crowd breached the line. Officers worked so hard to me. Civil disturbance began to redeploy rioters from accessing other areas of the building. I put the rotunda where I noticed a heavy-like residue and smelled what I be military-grade CS, familiar smell. It was mixed with fire extinguisher spray deployed by rioters. Rioters continued to deploy us into the rotunda. Officers received a lot of gas exposure, which is worse inside than outside because there's nowhere for it to go. I received chemical burns to my face, still have not healed to this day. I witnessed being knocked to the ground and various objects that were thrown by rioters. I was unable to determine exactly what those objects were. I immediately stood in the rotunda and called for additions. Officers began to push the crowd out the door. After a couple hours, officers rotunda basically hold the door closed because it was broken by the rioters. Officers begged me for relief as to how long they could physically hold the door closed, with the crowd nearly banging on the outside, attempting to gain reentry. Eventually, officers were able to secure with furniture and other objects. Out of the officers I worked with on January 6th, they fought extremely hard. Some said the battle lasted 3 hours, but according to my Fitbit, I was in the exercise zone for 4 hours and minutes. Many officers were right even before I arrived. I'm extremely proud of the United States Police, especially proud of the officers who are this agency and carry out daily operations. I know with work we can move forward. The January 7th into the very morning hours of my birthday, January, I spent at the hospital, family of our fallen, and met with the medical coroner's office prior to working with officers to facilitate a aid to transport Officer Sicknick from the hospital. Of the multitude of worked in my nearly 19-year department, this was by far the worst. We could 10 times the amount of people this, and I still believe it would have been just as devastating. As an American and as an Army veteran, it's see us attacked by our citizens. I'm seeing unnecessary loss of life. I'm sad to see the impact this has had on Capitol Police officers, and I'm sad to see that this has had on our agency and on our. Although things are still raw and moving will be a difficult process, I look to moving forward together as an agency and as a country. In closing, I want to honor Chief Sonship. Served under his command as watch commander for 3 years, was able to personally see his hard work and mission. He was fully dedicated to the United States Capitol Police, and he cared about every employee on the department. I often hear employees on the department praise his leadership and his ability to inspire others. He's made a significant impact on our agency. Thank you, Chief. Thank you.